button.
All right, all right.
Okay, and we should be live or getting live or about live. Hello, welcome to Molten Chat NAMM edition. A little bit later than planned, but you know we're professionals. We like to play with gear and mess it up most of the time. Please let us know in the chat if you can hear us. Myself and Trovarsi over here. It's over here. That way.
One
Say
time.
hello. Say hello. Say hello. Give us a squeak.
Hello,
There
hello.
we go. There we go. So yes, please
Hey.
in the chat, just let us know that you can hear us, and we will crack straight on.
Oh, audio is good.
Is it great?
I get, yeah, electronic sounds audio.
Good. Okay. Super then. So this evening I have the pleasure of talking to Trovarsi, also known as Shanda Nunez, who is a performer, modular performer, producer, that kind of electronic musician, I would say. How would you describe yourself?
I guess, yeah, I would say I'm a musician. I'd say musician first, and then producer and live artist. Yep, performer for sure.
Yeah. Is there one of those that you prefer, that you would put yourself forward as doing if everything else fell away?
I would say I'm a musician first. I've been playing the piano and being a vocalist since I was a small child, so I think if all my modular started on fire, I would still play the piano in my living room.
So
Hope it's
how did you kick off with making music part of what you did?
um just in terms of right with modular or just in general, like
In
as
general, I
growing
mean, just a
up.
little bit of your backstory, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I started playing piano. I actually got my first piano from my aunt, and she used to play piano for silent films. So that was a long time ago when I got
Really?
that.
That's
Yeah.
in, oh,
I kind
that's
of dated
interesting.
myself and dated her too, but she's no longer with us, unfortunately. But I inherited my first piano from her, and um, before she passed, I would sit with her a little bit, and then that kind of it was from there. I did play the violin for a couple of years before that, and then once I went to the piano, I kind of set aside the violin and moved
Much to everyone's
into.
relief, I imagine. You know, it's quite hard listening to someone learn the
That
violin.
wasn't too bad, I won a couple ribbons, like in elementary school.
Nice.
You know how that goes. But yeah, no, I really connected with the piano right away and just kind of stuck with that and then even played through like high school and into, my young adult. I even played in bands, like played keys and sang. I did some vocals and with some jazz and blues bands and things like that. And yeah, so I guess I did all that first.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
music a career choice? Was it something that you were doing professionally, sort of quickly?
No, not really. It was like one of those things, I feel like a lot of people come have this crossroads of like, you have this passion and you want to do it, but then you're like, well, I better do something logical, where I can make some money, and
Mm.
so, always had music in my life, but I went in and I've been a trial paralegal. Well, I no longer contract myself out, but I'm a trial paralegal as well. So I did
Oh,
that for a number of years, um, and then I think I hit a point, later just in life, yeah, obviously that I was just like, I just need to take that plunge and take the risk, and because I always juggled the hats, the day job and then
yes.
playing bands and then I started producing my own music and it's hard, as a lot of people know, to try to really give something your all 100% when you're
Mm.
still trying to kind of anchor to something else. And sometimes you just have to close that door so you can move forward, and I
Yeah.
did.
But that's
So
brave, though, isn't it? I mean, that's a real
yeah,
step into the unknown.
yeah, it was a process. I think I moved. I did it slowly. I'll say that. Like I went from, working for firms to working for myself. And
Mm.
then with the help of my wife, like she was like, why don't you just, do it, move into contracting? And then eventually I just moved. I didn't take any other contracting jobs. Like as far as like trials, I didn't take any more trials, so and then that was sort of the thing of like, it's like this thing, like I'm a trial paralegal contractor now, but I haven't taken a trial in probably 2 years. So,
But it's just like it is
but
on the telly, though. Yeah, The Good Wife, or what other legal things can I think of? It's exactly like that, I imagine.
oh yeah, for sure. It's a snooze fest, but no, it gets interesting, like going through all the data and researching the case and things like that. But no, it's definitely not that exciting in the courtroom, I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
yeah, shattered illusions, then I suppose.
Yeah.
So
Um,
what? So let's move that up to modular. Then, at what point did you discover Eurorack, or was it pre? Did you discover modular before sort of Eurorack? What was your discovery into that world?
well, by that point, by the time I really took notice, I guess, to modular was I was already performing and playing live and using Ableton and
Right.
using various like hybrid setups and hardware, like drum machines and building synths and Ableton and kind of just incorporating
Mm-hmm.
that setup. But I it's like one of those things where you see modular and you think it's interesting, but I wasn't ready for it yet. You kind of
Uh,
see it in the distance and people using it, and it sounds amazing and all the intriguing sounds and textures and I think what did it for me is I was going to NAMM for a number of years, and I would always pop over to the noise engineering booth and talk to
mm,
Steven. First, I met Steven, and then I met Chris, and I would always, go over there, and they were always so pleasant. So I think I was very fortunate that my introduction to the modular community was very pleasant
yeah.
right off the bat. So very inviting, which I've now come to know that overall the community is very, welcoming and always trying to help each other with patch
Yeah.
points and stuff.
No, I've definitely found that. I've definitely found that. I mean, there are exceptions, of course, but normally it's
Right,
the
right.
other way round. Having been to NAB myself, you talk to a lot of grumpy
Mhm.
people, and
Yes,
then
yeah.
occasionally you find someone who's really nice that you connect with, and that's a good experience. But most people don't really want to
To-
talk to you. But modular seems to be
Totally.
the opposite. They're pleased as punch that you're interested in this thing that they're fiddling with. It's nice.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wow, like, yeah, especially, being a woman in the industry, it's
Mm.
sometimes can be a little bit tougher. And so like, I wasn't expecting that. And it was a very pleasant surprise. And then I went to a show, Mo, he's also his name is Mo, but he's known, he plays in Belief Defect, drum cell. And I saw him play with his partner, and they do all like mostly modular. I think they did use some Bitwig, and um, that is sort of like what did it for me. I was like, those are the textures and sounds that I want to make. Like I need to just take the plunge and do it. And so that was it. Like I for the next month, I had like a slew of modules, and then I was off and running. Like, and I was in the rabbit hole. That was
Yeah,
it.
yeah, totally. So, I mean, do you remember what you started off with? What was your first little row?
My first modules were the BIA, of course, the
Yes.
voltage block and the Varigate and the block. Um, I can't remember what else. Oh, I had some 2 HP like uh, hi hat, snare. I mainly went into percussion first
Right.
because I was very interested in not only those sounds and the sounds that I heard, but also creating those sounds, but also figuring out what I wanted to change in my production.
Mm.
And and what I wanted to enhance, and just kind of add to in my production. So I kind of went the percussive route first.
Because the variegate's a 8-channel trigger sequencer, isn't it? Am I right
Yeah.
in thinking that? Yeah. Yeah, so straight in for the triggers and Basimilus as well, because funnily enough, for the track on Saturday, which we'll talk about in a bit, is the first time I've ever got that sound out of the Basimilus. And it's like, oh look, it sounds good for the first time ever. Mostly I make it sound kind of crunchy and noisy, and it's sort of, yeah, that's all right, but it's, I don't know. But I just hit on something, just completely randomly, and it's like fantastic. I'm never going to find it again, but I had to use it because it is one of those modules that you just go, I don't have no clue what I'm doing for a while, and then you just stick a load of modulation in and see what happens for a bit, and then every now and again you hit something that's extraordinary. Well, at least that's my experience. I'm sure yours is more cerebral than that, and you understand what's going on.
At first, I really did it with the BIA. That was sort of the appealing approach, is that it was so dynamic, and that you could just patch all the inputs and sort of explore the sounds and learn and not be afraid to break it. Uh, Modular, like that was also intimidating. Like, yeah, I didn't want to send something too much voltage and fry anything out. But I quickly learned that you either got cool sounds or you got nothing, or you got some weird sound that maybe you could sample and use later. And then as that evolved, I started like dialing in things more. But I think that's when I actually discovered your channel. So that's why I think you mentioned too. I think we kind of, or maybe started around the same time, or our journeys are similar. So I really gravitated to watching your process, because I felt like I was like right there with you. Yeah. But
oh, that's really nice. It's a lovely thing to hear when I've now spoken to a lot of people, met a lot of people who have kind of followed me on this journey and done it at the same time, and it's nice. Well, for one thing, it makes me think that it was a good decision, because a lot of my videos up to that point, I've been very software based, very in the box, and doing interesting long reviews of FL Studio or Studio One or Bitwig and bits and pieces, and some MIDI controllers, things like that. And so doing stuff on Eurorack seemed like such a step away from where my fan base seemed to be, talking about computers and stuff. It seemed such a risk, and yet I've never found anything quite so fascinating for myself. So being able to share that with people it's been a real pleasure or a privilege, really, to do that. And it's so nice to hear that back, because it makes you think, oh, I did make the right decision, at some point, because it's been helpful to other people out there. And
yes,
that's great. And it enables us to have this conversation, which is as good as anything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, because I felt like every time you would add a module, I was like, okay, like I understand. And you talked about, picking the case and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just that whole process. It's like, it's nice to kind of take that journey with somebody.
Yeah. Well, it was that whole thing where the world was so baffling. It seemed to be so over my head. I mean, I'm not a stupid person. I'm relatively clued in. I understand synthesizers, but I could not grasp it, and that drove me nuts. And so, I just sort of made it, I have to understand this, and it has to be understandable, because this is great, and other people should be able to get in. It must be possible. I mustn't,
Right.
I can't be getting a doctorate in order to get into Eurorack a little bit. It has to be possible. And so that was definitely my focus. I need to break this down so that I can understand it, and then hopefully other people will as well. So yeah, right time, right place, I think is a lot to do with it as well.
Completely, yes. Yeah, I mean, at first I would see like Basic perform at the time. I think he was with Twin Braids back then, and I forget another gentleman's name in LA, but they had the modular on the spot and things like that, and it was just, yeah, it was a good time to kind of start getting into and taking the journey, and it's been fun. I've definitely learned what I like and what I don't like, and what's worked for me, and what I want to work but won't work for me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of I have a lot of purchases which are somehow aspirational, or you think they're going to fill a hole, and then they don't actually do anything like you think they should or would have done, or they don't inspire. It's just somehow, because sometimes you sit down with a module, I find, and you lose time in exploring it, and you're going about and you're changing things, and it immediately contributes to what you're doing. And other ones don't. Other ones will sit there and you go, well, I'm not really having that much fun with this one, to be honest. And
Right.
it's interesting how that happens. And it may be that something comes back later. It's like, I mean, you mentioned the Variegate. I've got the Variegate 4 Plus, because
Okay.
everyone's talking about the Variegate, but I wanted a sequencer, and this seemed to be the perfect thing, because it's got a little bit of triggering, a little bit of CV, or you can have 2 channels of CV, 2 gates, that kind of thing. Nice, sweet. And I hated it, and I couldn't use it, and I would be setting stuff, and every time I would go to change a gate or change a pitch, I always had it in the wrong mode. So I'd suddenly like throw the time division off. I'd multiply it, or I'd
Right.
divide it, or nothing was happening, and I couldn't quite work out. And then I go, oh right, and then I realise I've changed the scale, or I've quantized it differently, and it was just like, oh, this is just too hard. I mean, it's purely because I'm not focusing enough on it, and I'm not pressing the right buttons. So it used to drive me nuts. However, more recently, I've kind of fallen back in love with it again, because I get it now, I think, and I'm far more easy on it. And I know that I can just go flip, 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 and I get something that I want. I can get a little gate pattern really, really quick. I can get just a bunch of notes out really, really quick without agonizing over trying to get the right note. I can just, because actually getting the right note's quite hard on the Variegate, because
Yeah, I have to admit, I sold my
ah
kid. I have the voltage block though. I like that. Like I don't always use it, but I definitely don't plan on selling it. Like it's nice to set like presets.
mm.
I use a preset holder with the CV, and then so that's pretty cool. But yeah.
Yeah, I've not used one of those. I'm aware of it. It's sliders and CV, isn't it? Essentially, he says sliders,
Mm,
great sliders. It generates stuff. Yeah, interesting,
mm.
interesting.
Yeah, it's
So
cool because then if you save it on a step, so that's where the saving, like you kind of find your CV with the slider, and then you can save it to that step. So it's nice if you patch, like I've patched the LIP to it, and then I essentially save different settings, on the step, so then I can jump to different sounds with it
mm,
instead of trying to fiddle with the knobs and find my way back to the sound.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
But that's essential
mm,
though, because that's the one of the things that I struggle with is trying to find ways to change mid
mm,
mid track. I mean, I can sit there with a loop that goes on for an hour, and I can entertain myself with that, but it's not so entertaining for people who are potentially watching or listening. So similarly,
right.
I can do 3 minutes without any bother. Trying to fill 10 to 15 minutes, you feel like you
Right.
need to have a change. There has to be something which is different. It can't just be the same stuff that you're slowly fading in and slowly fading out. Or maybe it can, I don't know. But I feel the pressure to find a change. And how do you do that? And then how do you bring that back? Because you kind of want to, I mean, I'm talking very generally here, want to resolve the track by somehow returning to where you started in some kind of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, verse kind of way, I suppose. And that in modular it's been a struggle. I mean, it's a struggle to change key, let alone find different chord structures or different actual changes within it, as opposed to just swapping one fader for another. Do you know what I mean? Is that making any sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I think, well, the way I approach it is, I approach it the same way even when I would use like hardware, which is I make a lot of various patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And so I create layers and I use those layers to transition. So I think that, um, I think without doing that, it might be a little difficult. You know what I mean? So that's why I like when I watch people that play modular, it seems to be that, I mean, I know I might be overgeneralizing, but it's like either
Mm-hmm.
there's a patch, and it's like this patch that kind of takes you through this journey, and it's dynamic, and it goes for maybe like 20 minutes or whatever, their patch time, and it's similar sound, like how you're saying, like it's kind of stays in that vein of a sound and really bring things in and out. Or there's the approach of like a DJ style, which is like where you want to make sure that you're changing, every 4 minutes, or
Yes.
every 4 or 5 typically. So that's the approach that I like to take, because when I play live, a lot of times when I would play before we could actually go out to like warehouses and things, I would have to play for an hour or more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it would have to be approached like a DJ set, in my opinion. I mean, some people approach it differently, but for me, I would have to approach it like that because, like you're saying, I could listen to the same loop for like, I look at the clock and it's been an hour and I'm like noodling around. And no one else on the dance floor would appreciate that. In a warehouse, you're like, come on, get on with it, So I work in a lot of layers, is really what I do. And then I choose different modules within those layers. So then when I take out, like, for example, if I were using the BIA and another oscillator, like the Mantis or something, and I would pull one out and then bring in another one with that oscillator. And so then I have time to change my BIA to the next sound that I'm looking for with that pattern. And I really do enjoy using sequencers.
Yes.
I mean, then that's like the big thing too, is finding the right sequencer that plays nicely with other gear, like hardware, or like I use Electron boxes too, but even like with Ableton and things. So right now, like I'm really, really digging the vector sequencer.
Okay.
That,
yeah.
the
Is that
vector
the 512 one? Is that
yes,
the 512 one?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's, I mean, is that even out now? Because it seems to have been in development for a long time. I'm never quite sure whether I've seen it officially,
Oh, it's
you
been
know,
out. Yeah, yeah.
make it
I
out.
think
Yeah.
it's been out for at least a year now.
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I, I saw, I did see it yeah, it's been out for at least a year that I'm aware of, maybe even longer. But um, no, I really like that sequencer. It really works well for me, and I really like the Metron too for percussive and gate triggers. So I think that really plays a big role in the way that I perform and making it easy, making it
Yeah.
easier,
Yeah.
make those transitions.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's key. I mean, funnily enough, I'm in the middle of a lot of sequences at the moment because I've been reviewing the SQ64, the new Korg one, and also the black
oh
sequencer
yeah.
from Erica Synths. I used a black sequencer on the track for Saturday, mostly. Although I have to say, I spilled out of it eventually. I had to bring in the variegate as well to run something because I just ran out of sockets. So
Is that just, is it a CD, or does it have gates, or is it, what kind of sequencer, the Erica Sense one?
the black sequencer has 4 channels of CV gate and modulation on each channel, which is all right. Four's all
Oh,
right, and it's wonderfully playable. It has a really nice feel to this. You've got this 4x4 grid of knobs, which are encoders, which are really nice, that do lots of different things. I mean, usually when I play on stuff, I don't often save anything. I don't often save a pattern and then do another pattern. I usually just play around until it finds wherever it is it's going. But this time around, I was trying to create a pattern, then trying to change it, and then creating another one. So I did saving and all sorts of things, which is very exciting. And then I could move from one pattern to another, and you get this change going on. It's like, oh, I'm getting it. So it started feeling like the old days when I used to program sequences on, I don't know, Roland D50s or old bits of hardware. And so I felt like I was making a structure, and that can be important. I mean, I felt that as well with the KeyStep Pro, but the KeyStep Pro felt, because of the keyboard somehow, it felt overwhelmingly like a traditional synthesizer, and that wasn't really what I wanted. Whereas the black sequencer feels more analog, because although I can plug a keyboard in, I'm still dealing in it with an analog way of creating the tunes, if you know what I mean. But
yes. Yeah.
yeah, but it's
So you're,
still,
get in there and change the knobs and the sequence at
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
time.
you feel like you're in there rather than I'm just going to play another tune. But I mean, these things, I'm forever changing the way I do things. It's always changing.
Yeah.
One of the funny things is that I was just looking at my older videos to see where I got to on my Molten Modular journey, and I got to episode 25 when I just had my first gig. I think it was. It's like 2 years ago. Just did my first gig and was talking about that, and that was kind of cute. And so I've done a patch breakdown of the patch I did on Saturday, which is now episode 26. And I leap from having this sort of 2 rows of modular into all this stuff you can see behind me, like racks and racks and racks of stuff, and I'm sitting there going, well, yeah, I got 1 or 2 more bits since last you saw me. So I have this huge leap from one thing to another, which I hope people will enjoy that if they're following the series. But
Yeah, I think they will, like, especially modules. Like, if I think of, like, I started off, with this little case, and now I have like multiple cases and a wall of modular, and it's just, I don't
mm.
know.
But
Yeah.
when I see you perform, you tend to have it quite a modest setup, though. Would that be true? Do you try to keep it small for the stage?
Yes, because my approach was like try to make something that I could travel with, and
Yeah.
that's always a battle with me right now. I mean, even during the pandemic and like the year we couldn't travel and still but in my mind I'm always like, will I be able to travel with this? Like,
Mm.
because I have traveled with some setup and then immediately regretted it, like the first leg of the flight, like like, oh, this, I got to figure out a way to ditch this thing, and I
Mm.
got to figure out a way to ditch this. Like, it's always like this ongoing process. Like, I'm building a new setup right now, actually, so we'll see how this one goes. But yeah, no, I try to keep it relatively small, and always picking like the sequencer. I think right now I'm sticking with the vector sequencer. It seems to
Mm.
really um, work well for my workflow. It has like the scenes and different parts that you can trigger, and I feel like I'm always discovering something new with it, which is nice too. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, like diving in, like I know enough where I can start building and making a composition, but at the same time I feel like I still need to learn stuff, and I'm always learning stuff with it, which is great. But Yeah, and then what you were saying about the touching, the analog, like that's really important to me.
Mm.
As a being a musician, I consider myself a musician first. Like, being able to play my modular is very important. Tweaking the knobs is part of the performance, like
Mm.
changing the filters and changing the position to get different sounds out of the oscillators, um and everything, like that's part of how I pick my modules too now. Before it was, I'm sure, like, when you started out, it's very like, oh, like so and so's using that one, I should try it. And that was why I said earlier, like wanting a module to work for you and really it not working for me, like,
Yes.
and understanding, like coming to that understanding of knowing how my brain works, and in reality, like the ER301, so there's this artist, the Surging Mass, like amazing, always uses it, like love his sets. Um, but and I wanted to love that module, but I don't know, like I just couldn't do it. Like, I don't know what it was, like maybe because it was too computer.
Mm.
I don't, but yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, I often see very elegant collections of modules, making an extraordinary sound.
Mhm.
Well, because we are almost overwhelmed with these sorts of things on Facebook and Instagram these days. These little clips into people's modular worlds, and some of them are
Mhm.
just intricate and beautiful, and I have no clue as to what's going on. And whereas I have some kind of fundamental understanding of a square wave and a filter. I know how that works, and I get a lot of pleasure just out of those couple of couple of things, those simple things. And I do sit down and wonder, well, so how do I get that beautiful sound that other people are getting? And I don't know, that's still, other people are further down the road than me, and I still have those sorts of things to discover, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I famously didn't get on with the clouds, which mystified a lot of people, because that was the first module I was supposed to get. And I even resisted getting it for a good long while, and then sort of caved into pressure of, you need to get clouds, mate. I didn't get rings either, I have to say. So I don't know why. Sometimes I just get this thing in my head where I just have to not do what's expected of me. And so that doesn't always work out for the best. But well, there we go. I can't help myself. But no, I couldn't. I didn't. It just wasn't. It wasn't doing it for me. I couldn't quite work out what it was that everybody loved so much about it. So there we go. That happens. Although there is a new one on the way, which is very exciting, and I am interested in that. Because, I mean, Emily even said that the first Clouds wasn't actually that great in her opinion. So it was kind of like a fudge, and it sort of worked, and she was never terribly happy with it. But, of course, everybody loves it. So
right, no.
the successor should be very interesting.
When is that? Is there any written announcement for the release date of that? Or
No,
I don't recall.
No, I've seen little glimpses. I know a couple of people have one. I've seen glimpses of it, a corner of one on somebody else's picture, that kind of thing, but nothing more than that. So it must be close, you would have thought. Okay. Maybe, I guess, if we assume Super Booth this year, but I don't know what that means anymore. These are very arbitrary dates on our planet at the moment. But
I know, it's real weird.
Yeah. So tell us about your Make Noise gig. How did you get involved with those nutters?
Well, I think my first meeting of Walker was I had him on as a guest when I did the perfect. I used to do the perfect chats like toward the beginning of last year. It's so weird to say last year, but toward the middle, beginning of last year, and we just really like hit it off and chatted then. And yeah, like I don't know, we just hit it off. And then I talked to him again for Synth Booth, and he reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested. And I was like, yes, I would love to, do something with you guys. Like I love their modules, and yeah, so I just came up with a concept that sort of was in my vein, which is hybrid setups and how to, incorporate modular into your DAW, because I feel like, again, that's the other challenge, once you're in this modular world, like how do you kind of bring it in to make sense and make a project out of it and finish something with it. And so I had a lot of fun doing that video. It helped me also figure out too what I really wanted to keep in my new performance case. Like the Mimeophone is a lot of fun. Like it's definitely one of my top favorite modules right now.
Oh, interesting. I've seen it. There's a few. I think I've got two Make Noise. I've got the Maths and I've got the Rosie, I think. So quite simple, straightforward stuff. But they have their higher range of things, their more premium modules are all equally fascinating. I kind of feel that I don't have the time to give them at the moment. I need things that are slightly more straightforward, perhaps. But it's the sort of, I imagine building a rack of things like those nice Make Noise ones, Instruo modules, those sorts of things, folk tech maybe, sort of those sorts of more esoteric, more boutique modules that will just create this beautiful thing to look at, let alone play with, but it will look beautiful. And I definitely have in my future, I would like to think that sort of thing is possible. But for the moment, just bits and bobs, bit of this, bit of that, stick it all in, see what happens.
So, I feel like to be fair, like when I purchased my first Make Noise module, it was a Maths because, again, everyone was like, you need a Math. And I used it, and then I was like, "What the hell is this?" You know. And then I kind of set it aside. I sort of was, I don't want to say afraid of it, but I was like, I can't figure this out right now. I need to
Yeah.
like dial it back. You know, this was, but as I learned how to patch and spoke with other modular artists and just talked about patching and just started to get a better understanding, I was then able to bring in some of their modules. They do make amazing modules, but they are. I mean, I'll admit that they were a little intimidating at first to kind of
Mm.
start with. I saw them. I thought they sounded really nice, but I knew that I wasn't really ready for them at when I first got into modular. And I
Mm.
think that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I think that's uh, finding what works for you, and so you can win. Like it doesn't have to be a losing battle.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun, and like, and then when you sort of graduate to these other modules, and then you start to bring in things that are a little more complex, and
Hmm.
like kind of, and then kind of start to expand your sound. I feel like
Mm.
I'm still doing that. I feel
Mm.
like the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, which is okay. Because then we have this awesome community that's always willing to like to share or show you something or to show you how they are patching it. And which I found was really interesting was like um when I sent the video and Walker said, "Well, I didn't think to patch it that way." I was like, cool, like
Yeah.
because like Walker, like I think he's like a packing guru, like for him to tell me like that, I was like, okay, so there's still new ways to do something out there, but which is
Yeah.
cool.
No, it
Yeah.
totally is. Totally is. Man, I have that fear every time I put up a review video of something where I'm convinced I've used it wrongly or upside down or done something stupid, but it's a very forgiving place, Eurorack, because it's just signals and you can plug them anywhere and it doesn't really matter, and the sound you get out is your sound and the sound that you're playing with and developing. Of course you can do everything completely wrong, I'm sure, but generally on the whole it's just something that you go with. And you're right, people patch differently all the time, do different crazy things. But I've used maths as just a pair of envelopes. Mostly that's their most function, and it took me ages to discover that what the 1 2 3 4 thing were about in the middle. And I can't tell you
Oh,
what they're about now, but I remember going, oh right, yeah, that does that. So otherwise I'm just using rise and fall, rise and fall. In fact, I could just have a row of rise and fall knobs and that would make me very happy. That's my simple approach to envelopes. But they have Make Noise have almost have their own language. The way they talk about modular is very different to everybody else. Because I mean, I think there's various ways. There's very technical ways. There's certain modular manufacturers or certain areas of the community that talk in a very technical, very engineering heavy way. And
right.
there's people like Make Noise. Instruo maybe is another one of that. Maybe that's why I put them together. They talk about it almost in poetic terms, almost in how the voltage makes me feel, as opposed to what it's physically doing to a component. That's at least how Make Noise comes across to me.
I have to agree with you. I feel the same way. Hmm.
Oh, sorry about that. Um,
Oh.
so I've just heard in the chat that Make Noise have announced their thing. See, I've been refreshing Make Noise's web page all day, and I haven't seen it. But it's called the Striga. Is that right? Do you know anything about it?
Yes, I was able to catch some of it, and it sounds amazing. Um, yeah, it's another tabletop, so it's in the format of
Mm.
like the OCO control. Um, let's see, help me out in the chat, you guys. I know I see some people there that they were in the chat when I could kind of pop in and out this morning. But what I did hear, it sounded amazing. It has a delay on it. Uh,
Well, I might, if I can be really clever, right? I can't guarantee this is going to work, but I just found Sonic State's video about it. Ah, oh no! No, sorry, hang on. Something's. Okay, good. Right, let's just put this on. So what happened?
Yes,
What did I?
they're very West Coast. Somebody in the chat mentioned they seem very West Coast concentrated. I believe that is their focus with their modules. Yes, a complex oscillator with effects and drone. That's exactly what it is.
Right. Well, I've got picture. I don't think I've got sound. So that's this is Sonic States. Why have I not got sound? I'm not going to be able to work that out right now, I don't think. Oh, I know.
Uncertainty, if you
There we go. Let's just have a blast of this for a second.
the VCA. Okay. With a filter into the feedback loop.
See, it sounds awesome. Just randomly picking bits. That's not going to work. Ooh.
Right there. That's the sound that I heard.
Well, pretty quickly. Make them.
Some bloke.
Okay, all right. Well, what do the chainsaw?
Alessandro.
Sorry, I don't know how helpful that was. So tell us about it. Tell it what should we know?
Well, Alessandro Curtini got together with Make Noise, and this was like a collaboration that they did together. And it is sort of a drone, a complex oscillator. It does have, I believe, it has a delay, and yes, yeah. I like the sounds that I heard. I think it could get very interesting with it. So I definitely would like to try one for sure.
Nice. Well, again, I'm one of the idiots who didn't really get on with the no coast, funnily enough. I really tried. And so, I mean, I had one quite early on. After I bought the Mother 32 was my first bit. And then I secretly bought a no coast and didn't tell anybody about it because it seemed extravagant at the time. Because I was trying to start off with modular. I was trying to start off with a semi-modular that I understood. But I liked the no coast so much, it shows when I just had a quick fiddle with it, that I sort of picked one up and had it as a little side project. And it was all right. I could just... I couldn't seem to get the right sort of sound out of it. It wasn't, I don't know whether I didn't quite understand the workflow because it's very different from a Mother 32, for instance.
Right,
to play with it very superficially, the things that you turn sound a bit like a filter, so you think you know what you're doing. But then once you get into it a little bit further, it's not like that. And so my brain couldn't seem to find its way through its channels somehow. So I ended up sort of letting it go. And that's slightly painful to me, I think. I kind of feel like it was the sort of thing I should be able to get into this. This should match me, this is, I would have swiped right or something on Tinder had I seen it, It was something that really appealed, and yet I was frustrated by it. And that's just one of those things. But it's really interesting that they now have this form factor that they're following with the no coast, with the control, and now with this fella. Interesting. Interesting indeed.
No, I really I like their little tabletop synths. I've seen some people even actually rack them up, but it's sort of fun to kind of just have it on the side on the table. For me, sometimes with modules or even with the no coast, it's interesting, like when you circling back to something. Maybe it could be something like that. As you learn some other module, then like it clicks in for this other module. I've had that experience too,
Yes.
like where I've had modules and I'm just like, it's just not clicking, and then I did some videos for Perfect Circuit, for example. So like I would dive into these other modules and then I was like, oh, okay, so now it would help and be like, okay, so now this other module, now that makes sense to me now, why it does that, so it could be one of those things. But also with the no coast, it was breaking down the parts.
Yes.
Because and understanding because they do have their own language, even on their modules. Like the panels themselves, like it was at first starting out, it was a little confusing for me, but at breaking it down like part by part was I found to be very helpful. But
Yeah, that's what
mm,
that's what you need to do. It's finding
mm,
the time, honestly.
right.
I feel so. I don't know. I made the mistake of taking a week off over Christmas, of kind of just not doing anything and just being with the family and playing with the kids, that kind of thing. And in the old days, when you used to have a real job, you'd get back to work after the Christmas holidays and you just get on with it. Whereas now, of course, nothing had been done. So I just had an extra week's work of work that I hadn't done, and just means I'm another week further behind than I was before. That's
Right.
all right. I don't mind having too much work. That's a good thing. But it does make a pressure on one's time when you just want to learn how to use something. But then, I mean, that's again circling back to Saturday. The
Mhm.
pressure of having to provide a track is exactly the sort of thing that I need. I almost got a chance to do that um, for the Colorado Synth Society. Oh, I can't remember now, but that somebody else had asked me to do one in December, but I was just too snowed. I couldn't put it together. So when your offer came up, it's like, yes, let's put that in, and then I have to do something. So it doesn't matter if the house is on fire or the kids are not dressed. I have to sit down and work with my musical instruments to attempt to bring something together, and that I need that all the time. I'm finding increasingly I have to schedule a thing in, say fuck everything else, do this, and then
Right.
I actually make some progress. I feel like get through something. Oh dear.
Yeah, it's pressure because then if you don't deliver, then. But I'm glad you said yes to the SoCal Synth Society show. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah. So tell
Yeah.
us tell us about it. Tell us the history of the thing, and yeah, tell us about it. Just tell us about it.
Okay. Well, SoCal Synth Society, we are a community here in Southern California. I'm a co-founder, and we just, well, this event actually is an annual event that we do around NAMM and we would do it in person at a local pub here, and it was free and just great community. Like last year, or I should say the year before now, like we had Cuckoo and Ricky
Mm.
Tinez, like everyone rolled through, B-Boy Tech and Alex, Nasty Nachos, and like some of the local
So
artists.
proper
And we
real
always do.
people then is what you're saying. Not sort of idiots like myself, but proper people.
And what do you mean? You're awesome. That's what you had to
Oh,
come
yeah,
out of like
I fished for that, didn't I? Quite nicely, I thought. But yeah, no, keep going, keep going. I'm just gonna put a link in the what's it.
like all around a good vibe. Like it's like a very relaxed environment to hang out and like because that's what SoCal Synth Society is about. It's about
Right.
we do a lot of DIY builds, we do meetups, we've had tutorials, we do tutorials, and so that's what this was about. It didn't matter what you played with. We called it we have just the funny name of like the Modular Madness Marathon, but in reality, everybody played with anything and everything. I mean, we from like to OPZs to modular to using your computer. It didn't matter what people were using.
Yeah.
And so we want to keep the tradition, even though we can't meet in person. So fast forward to this coming weekend, we were like, we have to do it. So we called it the Nameless Madness Modular Marathon. And again, we have another fantastic group of people, including you. And I'm really looking forward to it. So
Mm.
4 hours of sets on Saturday,
Yeah.
12 to 4.
Yeah, which is
And
is good
also,
timing. It's good timing because I just absolutely assumed it would be on at 4 in the morning over here. But it's not. You're doing it in the afternoon, which means it's like eight
yeah.
till 12 over here, which is awesome. Even my wife said,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, maybe we could watch a couple of minutes of it." Yeah, right, great, great. Maybe we could
Yeah,
watch
that's,
more than a couple of minutes. That might be nice. But
yeah.
so yeah, that's great. So that's Saturday night sorted, which is perfect.
Yeah, we want to pick a time where it was relatively convenient for a global a global thing. So
Mm,
we thought Saturday early for us, later still it's on the weekend would work out for
yeah.
everyone. So Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to, meetups, or at least some sort of social distance meetups in person. We have done some other online events. We did like a synth summit at the beginning of last year, where we did like a bunch of interviews and talks, and that was a lot of fun. But and did some online DIY building, which is
Mm.
interesting. Like they just chatting and soldering, and people asking questions in the chat, but just trying to figure out ways to stay connected.
Yeah,
Like through all this. Yeah.
no,
So I'm
definitely.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I did some live stream DIY. That was quite good. It just tends to take much longer than you think, so it can end up being a very long night. But people are very
Right, right.
tolerant, I think. So, and as you say, if people are just spending an evening together in that way, you're all chatting about or doing the same sort of thing. That can be a nice thing. Well, there's one thing I wanted to ask you about, which was Synth Booth, which was last. Was it the first one ever, or was it or has there been one
Mhm.
previously? Yeah.
No.
So this was yeah. So this was a virtual event, October, November, October. I can't quite remember. The end of last year.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was October.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But
Or-
it was, yeah, so it's called Synth Booth. So I guess it was just a play somehow on Synth Fest or Super Booth or a mixture of those sorts of things. And it was synth focused, I suppose, electronic music focused. And it was
Mhm.
an online uh, seminar, product, talks, music performances kind of thing that you were involved in. Tell us a little bit about your involvement and your impression of how that went.
Um, well, my involvement was Anna, who she's the one who kind of started this and puts it on, and I think it's amazing. I think she did a really good job.
Mm.
She just reached out to me because we SoCal Synth Society, we had the Synth Summit online, and so she just wanted to reach out and just talk about it and see if it would be something that the community would be interested in, and just talked about streaming and just
Mm.
and how to go about things, and she just shared some of her ideas, and she had some really amazing ideas, and I was like, you should just, we talked about it. I was like, you should go for it. I think people would really enjoy it, and really appreciate it, especially now being able to get together. And so she did, and she asked me to perform, and she also had panels. And one of the panels, I sat on two panels. One was about the synth societies, which was great. So it was
Mm.
an opportunity for various people from all the societies, kind of get together and chat again, and talk about that. And the other panel I sat on, which I really enjoyed, was the opportunity to talk about live performance with Bana Hafar, Marcus Fisher, and oh my gosh, please forgive me, my mind just went for it. Aunt Annie. Yes, Aunt Annie.
Yes. Yeah.
Apologies. But yeah, no, it was a really good experience to be able to do that and chat with them, because we're all so different in the way that we perform live. So it was interesting to hear their approach. But yeah, it was. I think she did a good job, and
Mm.
I really enjoyed the panels. I would say I think the panels would be longer. If hopefully,
Yes.
if she planned it again, that would be great.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like it went by so fast. But
Yes. Yeah. There was a bit of that. Certainly, there was. Yeah, there was a few panels where they'd only really introduced each other, and they only had like 20 minutes left, and yeah, it did seem to steam through a bit quick. But I mean, it was interesting because it's been such an interesting year in trying to work out how best to do these sorts of online get-togethers. I mean, Superbooth was well, I think was kind of a once in a lifetime thing, because it was on, it was March, and it was going to be on. It's only a few weeks away. And then sod it, it's not going to happen. And so we only had
yeah,
a couple of weeks, and we're all sort of sitting around talking between us, going, well, we should do something. What can we do? Now that we're not going to meet up in a hotel in Berlin. What we what are we going to do? So it was very organic, and everything was thrown together. And Heimbach did this extraordinary, stream for 8 hours for 3 days kind of thing, where he somehow brought this technology together and made it work, and people showed their stuff. And it was great, but an enormous amount of work and coordination went into making that happen. And there was a lot of sort of things that were left out, I suppose, and there was a lot of time spent on very, very nerdy things that perhaps could have been curated down a little bit and other things looked at. But it was an amazing thing to put together from people just volunteering their time. Nobody was getting paid for it. It was a good example of community trying to make sure that the event didn't go past without something happening, But then since then, people have been trying to find there has to be a not a better way, but a way of doing it that's more structured, that's invites participation, and doesn't look like it's been thrown together at the last minute. And I kind of feel that Synth Booth really sort of aced that, because it looked from the beginning to be a really professional thing. I mean, it didn't give much away, so we're scratching our chins going, I don't really know what it is or what it's supposed to do. And that sense of what went on until it actually started, I think, because the information, it's like a great brochure, but I've no clue how we access any of it, no clue how any of it's supposed to work. But it really sort of came together. I mean, the sense that I don't have is I have no idea how popular it was. I've no idea how well attended or not it was, because I know a lot of the live streams that I watched on products probably had 50, 60 people, but it depends on how they were watching it and what they were watching it through, I suppose, on those sorts of counts of things. But I mean, do you have any sense of how well received it was generally?
I mean, not in terms of numbers. I feel like it was pretty well received. I mean, every person, would have talk about like they were either attending or they knew about it and still talked about it afterwards. And one of the really cool things about it too was that we were able to reach out. Remember, we reached out to each other too, and reach out and connect with people, like become friends, in the app. And then there were some Zoom chats at the end of each day. So I felt like that kind of helped to build that community, and really, I think it was very successful. At least from my position. I don't know about the numbers or whatever, but I think it was successful. I think that she is considering doing another. I hope I'm not speaking out of telling too much without not, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but but so it must, I think it did well.
Yeah.
I think people.
Well, great. I mean, I mean, as I say, other than the confusion, I think to start with, I mean, I remember being in a chat room going, so we're in a chat room, what happens now, kind of thing. How do we do things? And I know that many of the manufacturers who had a booth, a virtual booth, weren't there when it started and weren't really sure what they were doing either. But it found its feet, and you kind of feel that next time around we'll have a better grasp as to what we're supposed to be doing. But I mean, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up, I have to also say that Suzanne Chiani's talk at the end was just mind-blowing. I was totally floored by how extraordinary that was. I don't know what I was expecting. I've seen it before. I have records and stuff, but it was just a lovely little talk and demo that she did. It was just brilliant. Yeah. The reason I was bringing this up was because we are supposed to talk a little bit about NAMM, and it feels very much that NAMM took this idea, or the format almost, of trying to have virtual booths, of having chat, of having rooms where you communicate with each other. But I feel, my feeling on NAMM is that it was somehow too overwhelming, because the good thing about Synth Booth is that there was a schedule and there was one thing happening after each other, and there was space in which you could then go and visit the virtual manufacturers. Whereas with NAMM, you had 10 things happening every hour, and you weren't really sure how to absorb that or how to schedule your way through it, and it seemed too overwhelming. But I don't know. I mean, did you pop along to the Believing Music place and look in at all?
I feel the same way. It's interesting because they use the exact same platform, but I had the same feeling that you had. I went in, I perused, got some messages from some different people in there, but it was very overwhelming. I think I watched like one or two things, and then I just didn't go back and I didn't log back in. Like I don't know. Yeah, like it was very. I don't think it was. Maybe for something as large as NAMM, they needed a little bit more structure going on in there for sure. I think that with Synth Booth, it obviously being smaller, more niche, focusing on a more smaller demographic of people or their interests anyway.
Yes.
But it was very well. At least they had a nice tight schedule. I mean, obviously, and especially being the first one,
Yes.
there's things to learn from any experience and now make the next one a little better with tweaking things. But I think with NAMM, I guess I was disappointed because it is so large and they do have the capabilities to really deliver something like that in a better format. And I just felt like it was sort of all jumbled and you had to filter through everything to kind of find the things that you were interested in, and I just didn't have time, honestly, to deal with it. So
No, that's right. I mean, NAMM is sort of a little bit old school in that it's very rock star driven almost. You have a lot of guitars and you have a lot of guitar endorsees, which tend to be, big tattooed, long haired guitar people, which is great. I'm into all of that too. But that's a very different vibe to something like Super Booth or a synth meet. It just has a very different feel to it. It's like, everything in the synthesizer community, Eurorack in particular, is very homemade. And I don't mean by that it's crap at all. I just mean that we do it ourselves. We get off our asses and we do it ourselves. The guitar world is all about PR and marketing departments and A&R and record companies and all these people who are between the manufacturer and the customer, or are between the endorsee and the customer, And NAMM, the trade show, is one of the few places you actually do get to meet Stevie Wonder, and chat to him about his keyboard, or you get to meet. I mean, I famously had a Slash next to Slash in the toilets, which is my NAMM anecdote. And those sorts of things happen because you're in a trade show and we're all supposed to be sort of similar. I don't know, I'm diverting now, but but NAMM has this old school feel, this old school of being about trade and business and rock stars and motorcycles and big guitars and loud noises, and the synth community is very different to that. And I think that NAMM has a little bit of way to go before they really understand the value of that direct connection, perhaps between manufacturer and customer, or artist and customer, because that's what we have in our internet lives. Those connections are getting smaller and closer all the time, and I think that's an enormously positive thing. But the synthesizer community has had that all along. Other than your Korg, you're never going to meet Mr. Korg or Mr. Yamaha, but you do meet Mr. Noise Engineering, and you do meet, Mrs. Mutable Instruments and such like and so forth. You meet that actual person, and that's an extraordinary thing. And I think that's perhaps why what NAMM did doesn't really appeal perhaps to us who are more used to that more personal thing. I don't know, I'm rambling now, but that's something.
I mean, you even get that feel when you go, obviously when you attend them personally, it's very much, the business and the wholesale aspects and that B2B connection. So I think you hit the mark with what you were saying. I think it's hard to kind of transition into trying to reach out to the people. I know they made this one open to the public, but it still very much had the same feel that they do in person. But the great thing about, I think the saving grace for the in person is that you get the in person, and then you get to hang out with everybody, during and after, that you may only get to see in person like once or twice a year, go and have dinners or shows or play. So it's like this other experience that you get out of it too, aside from the business.
Yes.
Yeah. And right. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder, well, I hope that they'll be able to do it in person again next year. I think. And any word on Super Booth? Are they?
Well, they're still hoping, as I understand it at the moment. There's still hope that they're going to do something in real life. I know they've sort of teamed up with a guitar vibe as well, so they're actually bringing a bit of a guitar show in with it as well.
Okay.
Excuse me. With the idea of doing more of it outside, so that there's much more space between everything rather than crowding everybody into rooms inside. So that was the thought, but as time goes on and things aren't changing as quickly as perhaps we'd like, I don't know. I mean, it seems crazy. I mean, last year, but last spring, say spring, summer, you're kind of thinking, I think we're going to have to write the year off. That's probably the safe thing. But here we are now thinking, we might have to write another one off, and that's not a happy thing. And I mean, I don't know what your situation is, but lockdown number 3, I think we're in the UK. I don't 2.5. Lockdown 2.5 that we're in at the moment is not as happy as the first one. Now that might sound like a strange comment, but the first lockdown, which actually, put aside, assuming that you're not, you're not sick and you're not dying and you're not grieving, assuming that you're untouched largely by the actual problems, the being locked down together as a family, where I am very privileged and very fortunate, I'm aware of that, was actually fun and different and exciting in many different ways. You kind of get the tiny glimmer of the people who had a good time during the war, because it is different and it's exciting and it's immediate, and you're doing all these things, and there's this trouble elsewhere that is somehow invigorating your life where you are. Whereas now it's getting to be such a drag. The school stuff, the homeschooling is far more intense than it was last time. Everything is more difficult, more stressful. We still don't know where we're going, So this time around, it feels much darker at this point. And so I have my doubts as to how quickly we're going to find our way out of this again,
Right.
But don't need to be a downer. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely last year, I definitely felt my plans, I'll say that. But some good things came out of it as well, like connecting and being able to. I had plans to go to Super Booth, and I had a small tour set up, and all that, was postponed, and Super Booth was canceled, but through this experience, I've been able to connect with you and a number of people that are in chat, and build these relationships. And I think now it's like we're like, okay, now when can we meet each other in person or go to these events in person? And now we're hitting 2021, and it is a drag, but I hope that there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines or whatever, what have you, and social distancing protocols and people actually following them, maybe, so maybe instilling another system in that sense. But I hear you. It is a little, like we're kind of like, okay, like we're ready to like get on and do something,
Yes, absolutely.
It's just been creative, here in SoCal, there's been these things where like using drive-in movie sort of approach to stuff, where there's been like live events, and then you drive and park your car, and you have that space around your car, and then there's like the next area up they have their own space, so it's like whomever you were sort of in your COVID family, kind of, so to speak, you know, who's in your circle, you know, then you could like go and they're in your car with you and you can have that space to kind of be outside your car. And then my family and I, we even drove through a couple like there were like some drive-through like light performances and
Nice.
things. So trying to get creative and do different, you know, create different things for our situation. But I'm definitely missing getting together and hanging
Yeah.
out with people and you know, making music and playing shows.
Mm.
So
I mean, some
I
people have
feel
found it very productive. I think the time being forced to stay home and focus on what's around you for many people has been very, very productive. You know, so
mhm,
that there are many silver linings, uh, and creativity wins out somehow. You know, we find out ways of doing it. It's funny how there's all sorts of technologies that are trying to come to life to enable online jamming and enable all these other things to happen. And you know, we've now all got our cameras and setups, and we now all half think we know what we're doing, and we're kind of going to be out the other end by the time any of it really comes together. But it gives us, perhaps it gives us the tools to do something bigger every time. I mean, it's been
mhm.
interesting. My local open electronic music open mic night. Oh, it's too much to say. In Norwich, in a pub, electronic music open mic. I was starting to do that a little bit regularly when the pandemic came. But we've done a couple of those online. I mean, they do it every month online, and that's great. Which means
Okay.
you can broaden it. You can invite people from different places. People can do it in the comfort of their own homes. They're not dragging their equipment into somewhere. And in some
Always a
ways, yeah. And in some ways, you
fun.
kind of want both to happen. You know, we want to be able to be in the pub making a mess and having live streaming all at the same time, or live streaming that. You know, all of that I think is going to be great when we get back to it.
Yeah.
So, have you toured Europe before? Have you been to Superbooth before, or anything like that?
No, that would have been my first super booth. I've been to Berlin and different
Ah.
places in Europe and stuff, but that would have been the first super booth. So I was really bummed about it. I was like, oh, but you know, obviously, you know, I other things happened that came out for good for me as well, like being able to get out and do more videos and um, just do more online presence stuff, which is great. But I definitely will be there the first chance that I'm able to attend. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Um,
cool. So
and
I'm
there's
going to just throw out to the chat that if anybody has any questions for Trovarsi or myself, but you know, let's keep the focus. Then do throw them in. Do throw them in, and we'll see if we can get to them. And if you have been asking them already, I am sorry. I've just been generally ignoring you. Although Native VS did say that the guitar show is officially not happening anymore. That was the one attached to Super Booth. So that's probably an indication that that's going to go away.
mm, mm.
And somebody else said that I meant to. I can't remember what that is. No, I can't. Bath the Bath asks what your favourite module is. See, that's always a good one.
Okay. It's hard to name just one, but I'll say right now I'm really the mimeophone, the vector sequencer, and the BIA.
Yeah.
Those I have to name some favorites. Yeah. There are others. It's hard to like they're like, you know, they're like little family members. It's hard to pick one favorite.
Oh, it is, and you fall in and out of favour with things as well. You know, it's like
Yeah.
that. The 2 HP pluck was my go-to module all the time. I loved it. I would stick it in. It just creates this sense of space and beauty within everything. And then just every too often, it would just start hitting this little edgy note. It would clang rather than pluck, and it would end up driving me nuts. So I could no longer use it. But I feel I've upgraded my 2 HP pluck to the qubit surface, you see, which is,
Oh,
it has more, it has a whole bunch of models in there. It has 8 note polyphony as opposed to 4, I think it was on the Pluck. And it has knobs big enough for my fingers, which is, I like that generally. I like that in a module.
for sure.
Tempora Botto asks, how did you hook up with Perfect Circuit?
I did a workshop for noise engineering at Perfect Circuit, and it was in person. And then we did a video. And when they were looking for somebody to help them with their videos and stuff, I reached out, and they were like, yes, and just sort of worked out. Yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, and it's been a lot of fun doing stuff with them too. Their team, Trevor, he's awesome. He's an amazing synthesist too, so it's fun to work with him. And yeah,
Great. You never know what happens just by asking, do you? That's the extraordinary thing.
somebody asked me my name. So Trovarsi, I'm Sicilian. I'm half Sicilian, and it's Italian, and it means to find oneself, to find oneself. So I think that when I
Nice.
made the transition into really wanting to take music seriously and really dive in, I changed my moniker and to Trovarsi.
Nice. Do you play all day? Asks Ape. Or how long do you mess about?
Do I play all day?
All day,
Is
every
that
day. How long? How many hours do you put in?
I play a lot. Um, yeah, I'm in the studio. Studio in the morning, and I tend to stay here till I break for dinner, and then I'll go back in for a while. And so I'm definitely in here at least 5 or 6 days a week, all day. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I
So,
mean, why not? Are you going to release? Are you releasing any music anytime soon?
um, yes, I will. I put some things out on my Bandcamp,
I thought
and
you did. Yeah. Let me have a quick look.
and did a remix for another artist, which I believe is going to come out in spring. And I'm trying to do something a little bit different with my releases. I released on several other labels, and I think this year for me with music, I want to take a different approach, which is um, working a little more with different compositions, and then either self-releasing, or there's another label that I've been looking at to release some other stuff through. I think it's interesting because when you think of the other music that I've released is very like it's on Beatport or Tracksource, which are like DJ oriented platforms where they sell.
Right.
I'm not Spotify as well, but it's very much when I would release music, I had this sort of thought of like, okay, well, I want it to be played in a club sort of aspect, or like in a DJ set kind of thing. And I think this year I really want to change that focus because I have produced other music besides just, like techno. I love techno. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to stop making techno, but I love music and other genres. And I just want to explore a little bit more with my patching. And I think that wouldn't be the appropriate platform to release on. So I think like Bandcamp or another label would be more appropriate to kind of release other music. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, Bandcamp, I think, is really working for electronic music. Well, for anybody, it's working for all sorts of people. But I've found a lot of stuff on there. Well, no, I mean that's not true. I mean my I don't mean I've found stuff. I mean I've a lot of people who I know who perform release stuff on Bandcamp, and so I'm able to easily purchase it. That's what I mean, because I'm not a terribly good electronic music connoisseur as such. I don't remember names very well. I don't I don't explore electronic music particularly. I tend to stumble into it, and so it's great talking to somebody who performs, and I go and listen to their music and think that's great, and then I can purchase that. That tends to be my vibe, as opposed to trying to find a genre on Spotify that interests me. If I'm looking for music deliberately, I end up listening to the 80s or old heavy metal or something. So that's not helpful. But getting to know people and then finding their music on BandLab, what's that? Get a Bandcamp is brilliant. I love that. It's the equivalent of buying their cassette, at the gig. It feels very, very personal, and so I think that's a great platform, the best one out there in my view so far.
I have to agree with you. You can release you can find any genre on there, you can find any genre, any structure, musical structure, like composition structure of music. When I would release other music on labels, is very, like I said, dance floor oriented. So it's like a specific, style or production format or formula sometimes, like for the aspect of the DJ. But I really enjoy Bandcamp because it really reminded me of what else is out there. I mean, I listen to other music. I listen to rock, and I listen to classical. I listen to a lot of Dr. Hook lately, and like Fleetwood Mac. I mean, I'm really into grooves lately. But anyway, yes, I really enjoy Bandcamp because you do get to see the other aspect of music that's not just for the dance floor, and I really enjoy that. And I really want to spend this year kind of getting back to that and releasing music in other genres as well.
Cool. Somebody asked, what was the last music that you paid for? Oh, that's a rude question, I think, Steve. I can tell you mine was ABBA Gold.
Oh, okay.
I literally purchased that yesterday, secondhand, for my wife's birthday, which is on Tuesday. So there you go, on vinyl.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, the physical piece of vinyl I bought was Gerald Fjord's vinyl. I think it might even be in the chat. But when they do the Bandcamp Fridays, I'll go on, and Colorado Modular, they do like a listening party, and sometimes I'll sit in with them and sometimes not. But either way, I always watch and then end up buying a ton of, like singles and things like that day. So I think another Bandcamp's doing it again, I believe, in February. So
yeah, I think they're keeping it going. Yeah.
Artists, support your artists. And,
most definitely. I have pre-ordered the Utopia Strong's new album, of course, who my special guest tomorrow is Steve Davis of the Utopia Strong, and that is coming out soon. I think it's in February. Obviously, I'll find out tomorrow, but I can recommend checking that out if you want to give yourself a soundtrack to tomorrow's live stream, just to get ahead of ourselves. But that's good. Otherwise, the last thing I bought on Bandcamp, I think, was Rain's music, Ambient Jams 3. I bought recently. Look at that, 2nd of January. Look, I'm almost regular, like going down the record shop. Yeah, it's a nice thing. I feel really good about. I mean, it's an amazing thing to buy records from people that you know. That seems extraordinary. That seems very rock and roll. But I enjoy that a lot. As well as acquiring greatest hits albums. So, I've got recently, as I say, the ABBA one. What's the other one I got recently? Oh, Chili Peppers. That's right. Cool. That's like a double album of like one really good album and one, what's all this crap? It was one of those greatest hits. I've not heard of any of these. What are you talking about? But this first record, I'm digging all of that. And where's Roller Coaster? Why is that not on here? It was one of those kinds of greatest hits experiences, but it was fun nonetheless. Sorry, digressing.
Yeah, I miss those record store days. When I was a teenager, I worked in a record store, that was like when we back then we had to like handwrite receipts, you know.
Yes.
That was like, it was like cassettes and then CDs came out, and it was like that was the big thing. I think I probably just dated myself, but that's okay.
That's all right. We're old farts here. I promise you that.
But yeah, it was fun. That was a really good experience for me because I mean I always listened to a lot of music in general before that, like different genres, but that really helped open my eyes to how important it is to really listen to other genres, even if you're only produce in a specific genre, how it really helps enhance your production and your musical creativity by listening to anything from a little death metal to some jazz and classical.
Yeah, no, definitely. And those things, I mean, because there's a temptation, I think, with modular or electronic music to automatically hit techno, I suppose, in a very general sense. You stick in a kick drum and you stick in a bass line and you play with the filter and you take it and you build it up and you drop it out, build it up, drop it out. And in some ways, it's very easy to follow that groove because it's nice and we respond to it, and it feels familiar and it feels like you're doing it right. That's if I can get a bass line out of something and it feels like it's grooving, then I feel like I've won. Like you said before, I'm winning at this. Right. But it is also really interesting to explore music within that framework as well. So I always find it fascinating when people with amazing musical knowledge talk about forming chords and talk about the changing of the quality of chords and things like the harmonic. Listening to Instruo talk about the harmonic module and what that's doing and how that's changing from different forms of chords throughout the structure of something. All those sorts of things fascinate me. It's stuff which I have a small understanding of because I studied music to a small part of my education, but there's always other places you can learn, other places that you can go, and then you can try to bring that into what you're attempting to do. I do find that fascinating.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've been wanting to check out the harmonic too. That I like that module. Looks interesting to me. It intrigues me.
Yes.
Have you tried it, or have you tried it just in VCV rack, or have you?
Well, that was a thing, wasn't it? Fancy dropping all of those in VCV rack. That was Christmas.
Yeah.
Although what amused me greatly was that when it came along, I dived in. All right, great, stuck it all down, started patching things together, and thought this doesn't sound that great. And it's like, well, I'm expecting too much too fast, because it's software. I'm just assuming preset, boom, and you're off making a great sound. But you're still trying to get 3 oscillators through the harmonic and trying to make it sound right, and I've still got to tune them together, and I've still got to patch it into something which is interesting so it's not completely dry and lifeless. It's still a lot of work to do, and in some ways that's the beauty of VCV rack, is it does mirror the experience really, really well, while at the same time offering a lot of software advantages, of course. But
Right.
but yeah, I wasn't able to get instant beauty out of it, and so I thought, well, I'd rather waste my time on my hardware than waste my time in here not getting anywhere, if you know what I mean. So, it's something that I'd like. Again, I mean, I've been exploring doing pads and doing more than individual monophonic lines. And so something like that would be very interesting for that. Interesting. There's the other one as well.
Then.
Sorry, say again.
So what is your favorite module right now? Then too, I had to answer that question.
Yeah. My favorite module right now. My favorite module right now. Is the Sonic Stochastic generator, which is I can reach it because it's out of my rack. I mean, it's a dangerous place. I've just had to bump it because I've had to put the Maestro LFO in that I'm sort of doing a review of. So I had to take something out and this had to come out. So it's this fella. Now this is upside down. It's what it is you have, so you can see you've got, these are essentially notes, white notes, black notes. So you've got a scale. So the basic idea is you push up a note and that's how often it will appear. So you create a probabilistic or stochastically based melody just by pushing up the notes that you want to sound. So, you know, you can very quickly stick up a bit of a chord, and then only those notes will sound, and they'll happen as often as you poke them up. But then also you've got control over octave, and you've got control over gate from 16th to 2s. So if you put everything else to 0 and just put up the 2, you just get a note every now and again. And it might be one of those, or it might be that one. It could be this one. You know, you just don't know. And so it sort of self-generates this pattern. I mean, it's a bit like a very advanced Turing machine, I suppose. It's just coming up with stuff, and you're forcing it then. So it's like, it's like a Turing machine through a quantizer, perhaps. So you're forcing it through a few notes, and so it just comes up with a lovely little tune. And then every now and again you might poke another one up for a bit, and then it will find that note and play that one, and then you take it out again. So it's a beautiful thing to spend time with, and I really, really like it. And I've been after one for ages, and they're very, very thin on the ground. But they actually reached out. It's called the Omsonic Stochastic generator. Over there. Though that's not going to focus. Anyway, but yeah, hard to get hold of, but they did get in touch with me, thankfully, because I've been moaning about it on the internet, moaning about this thing never turns up. They said that it was going to be available years ago, and it's still not here. Bloody hell! And so they got in touch and said, "Oh, all right, we'll stick you up the queue." And so that's been great. So I've enjoyed that, and I haven't yet really scratched the surface. I've just done the notes and the little obvious bits, but it has a lot more behind the surface that can. That's even cleverer, so I understand. So yeah, that's nice. That's very nice.
So now, did they send it to you? Is it like a pre-built module, or did you have to? Is it a DIY kit?
No, it was built. Yeah, it was built.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I had to pay. I had to pay for it as well. I should add. It wasn't that they said, "Oh, we'll send you one," because that happens and that's nice. But no, that it's one I purchased.
It reminds me of the Melodicer. I saw announced that, remember, at NAMM last year at NAMM, and that looked interesting to me. But it was larger.
Yes.
But similar concept, where depending on where the fader, how often the note would strike. But it seems very fun. Yeah. Ramona, they make
very similar. They do, yeah, they do. Although sometimes I think that they announced a couple of NAMMs ago, a lot of things that still haven't come through. They had their big preset thing that they were doing. Maybe the mix slicer was the one that is one of the things that eventually sort of revealed itself. But you know, you've no idea what production on modules and stuff is like, and how these things work. So
and now with thing that's happened, I feel like it's set a lot of companies back with their delivery time on even their current things. I've noticed even companies have had issues even with things they've already had out, just because of the COVID situation and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes. So there we are. So how are we doing in the chat? There was a blue line. Steve, thank you. I really appreciate the fluttering. I can hear the fluttering of cash in the breeze. That's lovely. Thank you very much, mate. That's much appreciated. How much, says Live Review? How much for what exactly? An hour of my time? What are you after? Oh, what, the module? That's probably what he was asking about. I can't remember. I'll look that up.
I'll just want to say hello to everyone in the chat. See a couple people saying hello. So thanks for being here and tuning in.
It says Zero. I don't know. It says £0, unfortunately, on the internet. I can't quite remember how much it cost. It's out of stock anyway, as I say. There's been a waiting list for a long time. So, I don't know. Anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. Put a link for it. Okay, I'll put the link for it. But it's not going to do any good because you're not going to get one. I can promise you.
You drop in the link.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
There we go. Yeah, cool. So plans then, for what they are. What have you got coming up? What's up for you now? What is this you're doing this afternoon? You do some teaching as well. Is that true?
Yes. Tonight I'm giving a masterclass for Point Blank, and basically I'm just going to go over a hybrid setup and a beginner approach of how to introduce modules and modular into your setup. And I'm going to focus specifically on setups that people probably already have, maybe as if they're already producing, using the sound card they have, as opposed to, workarounds and things to kind of introduce specific modules, as opposed to going out and buying, like an ES9 right away, unless you're ready to make a commitment, to modular, and just a different approach, and just talk about some modules that I am currently using and have used, and why they work in performance for me, and what's worked for me, and just kind of sharing that approach. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it, actually. It's at 6 tonight. I think people still can RSVP to attend it, and it's like in a Zoom format. So it'll be fun because they'll be able to talk to me and ask questions and things like that, which will be nice. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I started a Patreon, I guess. Yes, I finally did that. Yes, yeah.
That's a funny feeling, isn't it? It's a funny thing. It's awesome, but it's strange. It's strange.
Yeah. I'm taking a little bit of different approach to it, though. I'm focusing more on doing like small groups or one-on-ones. So that's really if you sign up for the Patreon, it's joining a small focus like Zoom, and I'm going to do like various tutorials using different hybrid setups and different modules, hardware, and just so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's so far so good. It's going but that's the other thing I'm doing this year.
Yeah, it creates a pressure in your life, which is good. I mean, I respond well to pressure and deadlines and things like that. I find that helpful, but it is there because you have this sense that people are sort of sponsoring you to a degree, but there needs to be some kind of return for that. Quite rightly, there should be a return for that, and that does create this pressure. But it's also it's somehow wrapped in this warmth that these people actually want you to do stuff and enjoy what you do. And with the internet being so fundamentally negative all the time, it's a really nice thing to have in your court. It feels like you've got a little bunch of people who are championing you, and that's it's a lovely thing, a lovely thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is. It feels good, and I mean, I think it's this approach that I'm taking. I enjoy teaching and sharing information, and just community, especially with the SoCal thing. And I feel like whenever I share those things with people, like it enforces something for me too, or I learn something from them as well. So I thought it would be a good thing to kind of try out this year and see how it works out. So
nice. What is the simplest, easiest way to connect, say, Ableton to Modular if you're trying to bridge that gap? So do you have like what's your tip for that without having to go, as you say, ES9 and special bits of hardware?
Well, if you, it's just about like which modules maybe to start off with. So, for example, I think producers, they're already producing in the box. Maybe they already have a complete audio sticks or a Focusrite, you
Mm.
know, um, and they might have a push already, um, and so therefore maybe they're more familiar with MIDI, sequencing
Yes.
and using the MIDI scroll. And so some of the modules, like maybe the NAMM MIDI by ALM, and taking that approach and using more of a MIDI to CV conversion module,
Yes.
and applying a mixer, and even something like the 2 HP mixer or something to attenuate the volume, so you can just use the interface that you already have,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
maybe that's, and starting off there. And so that way, when you start to learn the MIDI to CV, it's like you're inviting the Eurorack into the environment that you're already familiar with. So it's not such a
Yes.
large hurdle, so as opposed to, let's get an ES9 and then use CV tools. And you're like, oh my God, what is CV tools? And like, oh, you're down some other weird technical rabbit hole before you even, and now you're tuning and oscillate, So I think like taking the approach of using MIDI to CV modules when you're starting
Yes.
out will help to give you a better understanding of volts per octave, and you understanding gate and sequencing when you're using MIDI modules like that starting off with.
Yeah, no,
So,
that sounds, yeah, that sounds spot on. I think we get a little bit precious about control voltage sometimes, in that, oh, the resolution and it's infinite and stuff. Whereas MIDI is so stepped. It's like, well, yeah, it is, but we haven't really worried about that for 40 years, and we've coped with it. It's all right. We get away with it. So
right.
yeah, MIDI is definitely a familiar place for most people, I think.
Yeah, I definitely.
Live Review asks, is it easy to work with only one color of patch cables? Which is a question I had as well, playfully.
For me, it is. I felt like when I was using a bunch of colors, I was just so distracted, and maybe that's just my OCD, that I couldn't really focus. So I slowly noticed that I was unpatching stuff and patching it with the same color, and that it looked more like, now I can really focus on the module, if that
Mm,
makes sense. And then it just became a thing where I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to pick a color, and then since I'm going to be playing live, I need to pick a color that I can see and that I
yes.
like. So I just sort of went with red. And I mean, I do have other patch cables of other colors, but if I use it, it's more of like a temporary, like maybe I'm trying something. So for example, if I have a patch that I know I want to work with, and um, I want to maybe switch something up and try like modulation in it with a different module, or a different approach, I might use another color, and then if I
Oh.
like it, then I'll swap it out. then I'll then
So,
I'll like,
well, that's amazing. See, that's systematic. That is, that's using a whole other part of your brain to, to do something intentional. I think that's quite miraculous. I'll have to think about that. No,
yeah,
it's too much of a mess. There's no, there's no system. I don't think there's a system that can ever work for me. It just has to fall into each other. Oh, that's
right.
brilliant. I like that a lot.
That's like your system in itself, like, as some people it doesn't
That's
matter, like
awesome.
they can just grab the cable and they just go for it. Other people are like, yellow is for pitch, and
Yes.
pink is for this. And like, I'm like, I don't want to try to remember, like, I see all the yellow cables and be like, okay, wait, what was that for again? Like, I was like, forget it, one color for me works. So I guess it's like, that's the fun about modular. That in itself is modular.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Do I have a default patch setup? Um, Maybe with No, I mean, I guess with drum, it depends. Like once I build like a live system, then I put in my percussion. So definitely like a kick, um, maybe some hats, and I have like a backbone of structure going. And
Mm.
then once I have like a start, of course, my lawn person comes. I hope you can't hear that. Is it loud? Sorry.
It's all right.
Um,
It's gone. It's gone. Oh,
okay. I think he's still there. I might have to go tell him to do another yard at this time right now. I apologize. I forgot all about him. Um, anyway, yeah, I'll start with something simple like drums, like hat, clap, kick, and then I'll start adding like different points of modulation in there. So I think I start there first, and then like a groove. Mhm.
yeah. Cool. Well, look, we're heading towards the 2 hour mark, I think,
Okay.
which is remarkable, and so we could sort of start drawing this into a close. Perhaps it's been really nice talking to you. It's been lovely to hear about your process and what you do, the things you like, that kind of thing. I feel that we've learnt stuff about you and also the things that you brought to the chat. So thanks ever so much for spending the time. That's just been it's been a delight, I have to say.
Thank you. I enjoyed speaking with you as well. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
I don't. Yeah.
And to you guys in the chat, thanks for staying with us. Your questions, they were useful. Thank you very much. It's always good to see you here. And I hope that was helpful and useful to people. And now you need to go and check out Shanda's music wherever you can find it and the performance. And of course, this Saturday, did I put a link up? I think I did. This Saturday night, 8 till 12 over here, or noon till 4 on your side of the world. I'll stick it up again.
Everyone go check that out. It's going to be
Yeah.
a lot of fun. Performances, all different genres. So.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. There's like a 14, 16 type people playing. That's a lot of music. So that'll be great. I did ask what you're doing next. Did we get an answer to that? You were doing, yeah, I know you're teaching just at the moment, but what's your next project after this?
I mean, mainly I'm just going to really focus on the Patreon and releasing music. That's
Cool.
basically where my focus is. Yeah, I really want to kind of get that going and focus on those setups and the small groups in the Patreon, and then thinking about the other genres of music that I have that I want to put out. And I have music that I actually prepared that I am going to release, but I'm also going to continue to write music too. So.
Great. Well, that's a fantastic thing. This Saturday you'll get to hear me perform amongst other people, and also after Saturday I will be sticking the performance up on my own channel, I think, plus an overly long patch breakdown of the entire thing, which I found quite fun, because I had to, because when my patches are only momentary, so I think I worked on that track for almost a week, which is the longest I've worked on anything. And I've got I nearly got it a couple of times, and I took I did a take, took a recording, sat down to edit it down, and then thought, no, this is rubbish. And they went back to it and then massaged something, and then something new came out, and then played with that, and then played with that. And so it's kind of the longest my module's been patched out for ages. And then I had to take it apart because it's like, I've got to do the next thing. I've got to get past it. So I sat down and thought, right, let me film myself before I take it apart, just explaining what everything does. And that comes out to be a relatively interesting video, I think. So that'll be coming out next week with a bit of luck. And I've been sitting on those going, oh God, because I'm terrible that as soon as I've done a video, it has to be up. It has to be up. I can't, it must go straight up onto the internet. So I've been sitting on these 2 videos thinking, oh, this is driving me nuts. They're in there in my list on YouTube going, no views. And it's like, come on, I have to get those up. Anyway, that's my problem. So so I should say that tomorrow night, the last of these post NAMM chats, whatever it was that I thought we were doing, is with Sir Steve Davis. He's not a sir, I don't think. He should be by now. It's Steve Davis, modular musician and sometimes snooker player, and from Utopia Strock and other things. And he's going to be along. We're going to chat, hopefully, about music and exciting, wild things. And that's going to be great. Looking forward to that. And then with I've just filmed the Molten Monthly today, which I hope to edit down tomorrow, which I hope to get up by the weekend. So I'm hoping to have a regular live stream, probably not this Sunday because of other things, but maybe Monday night. Just me doing the normal thing. So that's the plan after today, just to fill you in on that. But it all depends on how intense homeschooling is tomorrow, because my wife's a teacher and she's working this week, so it's all down to me this week. So it's it's been hard. It's hard. Teaching is hard, I think. But
lots to do.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Well, we'll call it a night then. Thanks again for sticking with us.
Yeah.
And we'll let you go.
All right. Take care. Thank you. See you Saturday.
Yeah. Saturday night it is. Cheers.